Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And for those of you who are here for the first time, a couple times a week, we take on a work dilemma. And today we've got Heather with us. For those of you, by the way, who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. And you can find past episodes that we've had on thisisnotadvice.work, where we've compiled them, and this one will one day find its way. And so we've got Heather Monahan with us today, who after a successful career in the media business is now a best-selling author. Your last book came out just in November, right? Just really
Yeah.
Best-selling author, one of the top keynote speakers in the US, maybe even the world. I don't know what the ranking is. And the question that we want to ask today, and I would love to hear any of the stories that you have to share on this, Heather, any advice you have, is I feel like I'm stuck in a career rut. Maybe I've been in the same job without ability to get promoted for a while, or I'm just somehow unhappy or dissatisfied with what I'm doing. How do I get out of a rut like that? And thank you very much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. The good news is this is the best time ever to be in a career rut and be discovering that or aware of it. There have been more people have left work, more leverage now is in the hands of employees than ever before. So your time is now. There was Wall Street Journal ran an article this morning, workers quit jobs at a record level, right? So if this is the time that you have permission to go ahead and take a leap of faith and find out what it is that you're meant to be doing and know that you're not alone. So you've got the permission has been granted, and let's figure this thing out.
So what do you do? So let's assume I've decided, okay, I'm in a rut. I know I can do it. I've gotten over, I know your first book was about confidence. Maybe the second book is too, you could tell us. But I've built up that self-confidence to be able to say, I can do it. What do I do?
So the first thing, there's a couple of different things that can happen when someone's unhappy at work. It could be the culture of the company that you're working in. It could be the actual role or the position you hold. It could be the person that you're working for. So there's a lot of things to look at first and foremost where you are. And the best way to handle that is through communication. I'll never forget that I had a woman who was on my team, worked in a different state that I didn't see her often. One day she called me to say, I'm thinking about leaving the company. And I said, tell me what is it that you're unhappy with or what's gone wrong? And she explained, I love the editing work that I do. However, I'm leading the team on automotive and I hate the car business. And Roy, it was that simple. She just didn't like the category. And she was so afraid to tell somebody that, thinking that she would be told, we don't need you, then leave. Immediately we moved her to a different team and she enjoyed her work. So it wasn't as much of she was stuck, but all she needed to do was raise her hand and communicate and ask people for some help.
Yeah, I mean, that diagnosis phase seems so important. First, I just have to figure out, why do I feel stuck in the way that I am? And by the way, one thing that I've changed my mind about over the course of my career, I really used to think that successful people didn't keep doing the same thing for a long time. And I've totally changed my mind about that. I mean, some people are just craftspeople who can love doing the same thing again and again and again. I mean, look, novelists, like maybe the novel is different the next time, or authors like you. And so one of the things that tends to happen in that diagnosis process is people ask others for input. How do you figure out who to talk to, who not to talk to, what to listen to, what not to listen to? Because that diagnosis process is very rarely solitary.
Yeah, I've got a great story on this one, a personal story. But my advice to anyone is don't take direction from someone who hasn't been where you're going. And I'll share with you what I mean by that. When I was writing my first book, my sister, who's a great attorney and wants the best for me, told me, you can't write this book. Absolutely not. You're going to be sued. It's not going to work out. Don't do it. And before I pulled the plug on that book, I made a smart decision. I called my editor, who had written 19 books. He'd been where I wanted to go. And I called him and I said, my sister's really concerned for me. He said, how many books has she written? I said, well, none. She hasn't written any. He said, then you are speaking to the right guy. I've written 19. You can be sued for anything. Pull the trigger and launch that book. I launched that book and it went #1 the first day that it came out on Amazon. And it was a great success. But the point is, I wouldn't have known that had I taken the advice from someone who loved me, cared for me, but hadn't been.
Look, one of the reasons we call this series, This Is Not Advice, is because so much of the advice we get is just from the perspective of the giver. They're either, they felt bad about something that happened to them, or they're trying to get you to justify their choices, or they want to live vicariously through you, even when somebody cares about you deeply. And so none of us know what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes. People out there, they have to decide for themselves. And so then in terms of any wisdom on, once you've found, you've listened to people, you've figured it out, what often are those first actions that people take?
Oh my gosh, just anything. The key is, and this is actually a process in my new book, it's called the BACK process: beliefs, action, and knowledge. And to give you a quick idea of what that means, when you're faced with an adversity or an uncertainty, distill that belief down to the most simplistic shred of fact that exists. So for example, if I make a career move, I'm going to fail, right? Maybe you're telling yourself that story in your head. Distill that down to fact. Is there any fact there? Typically, there's not in whatever story you're telling yourself. So the next step is take action. And it can be anything from reach out to a recruiter or make a phone call to someone that you know through LinkedIn who's in a different industry and share some of these ideas and goals that you have. It can be the smallest thing. Ask for help, update your resume, update testimonials on your LinkedIn profile, right? But take an action step to start moving yourself forward. And the third step in the process is all around the knowledge that you're going to access to support you in that journey. So start listening to TED Talks that are about transitioning in careers. Start reading about how Steve Jobs, what he did after he got fired and how he bounced back. Surround yourself with the information that's going to support you and put you in that right mind frame to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that last insight, because it's the kind of the converse of who not to listen to is pick who to admire. And you pick who to admire and you go after them. And a cool thing that I see in our modern world that a lot of people still fail to take advantage of is the information's just out there. You don't need some friend to introduce you to Heather Monahan so you can figure out what she thinks about a career transition. You can go on her Instagram and see, you can read her book, Overcome Your Villains. And it used to be a world where only a very small number of people had access to a big megaphone. But now if you want to go into some subset of environmental science, chances are a lot of the PhDs who have been successful are on Twitter. Go follow them, figure out what they say. And so I love that. It's sort of like diagnosing, debunking the views, and then getting all that expertise and just taking any action. I just love that framework. Anything else you want to add before we wrap?
Yeah, for 20 plus years, I was in corporate America. I was in the sales and sales leadership lane. And because I was good at it, I always thought I had to stay there. That was my, you don't want to step out of that, because what if you're not good in other arenas? What I've learned since then, 4 years ago, I got fired from that job. So by the way, if you're not happy where you are, take action now so you can be in charge. I had to respond to being fired, which is a lot more stressful than building up a side business or starting to explore other opportunity. So, what I would say is that you can take your unique talents and skills anywhere and live your life blamelessly. And I speak with really personal experience. Just because I was good in sales and sales leadership didn't mean I couldn't be a good speaker or a good author. There is other opportunity out there for you. You just need to see that your unique skills and talents will go with you wherever you take them. Start living your life blamelessly.
I love that. I love that. I think that it is such a powerful way and an empowering way to think about the world. I'll just acknowledge it. I appreciate having you on, because as a white man, it's like there are certain kinds of ways of moving through the world that are going to be different for others. And for both of us, there are going to be people who have other backgrounds, or who are Black, or who are just from some other background where we can't relate to their experience. But taking some action and imagining yourself, conceptualizing yourself, not imagining yourself, as powerful, I think that feels like the kind of thing that might be universally applicable. So thank you for that. The latest book is Overcome Your Villains. And for those of you who want to see the compendium of past advice here, great. You got the prop. I love it. This is not advice.work, has this and other things. If you have questions about work, you can always ask us here. We get our questions that we tackle and the guests we come at from you. And thank you again, Heather, to be continued.